Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Uh, uh, what the president said is exactly what the U.S. government has long ago said, that Iraq is a good friend of the United States. We have common shared interest, and we want to see the economy in Iraq in a good shape. We want to see Iraq an independent without any interference from Iran or anybody else. And so it was a good opportunity for the Prime Minister of Iraq, Mr. Mohammed Shah Sudani, to come to the White House and talk to the president. And the president welcomed him. As always, we always welcome the prime ministers or the officials that come from Iraq to the US. So our relationship seems to be in a good shape, and we want to see it the same way. Well, Iraq, currently there is Iranian influence in Iraq, and those missiles that came and the drones that came from Iran went through the Iraqi airspace, and therefore, because of the proximity of Iraq to Iran, there is a lot of Iranian influence over there. We would like to see that influence diminished to the maximum, because Iraq is an independent country. They have natural resources and they have a good history. If you go back, if you go and look into the background of Iraq, it has one of the earliest civilizations that the world has ever seen. Well, there is a lot of influence, Iranian influence in Iraq. We would like to see that diminished to the maximum. For example, when you see the American dollar goes to Iran, it goes through the Iraqi banks. We want to see that stopped. Iraq imports electricity from Iran. Iraq has a lot of resources, such as the natural gas, to produce their own electricity, so they don't need to depend on Iran for their electricity. Iraq is a wealthy country. It sells oil, and you have decent income from the oil revenues, so you don't need any influence from Iran over Iraq. It's an independent country, and we'd like to see it use his independence to the best of the Iraqi people. Well, Iran is involved in most of the conflicts, if not all of the conflicts in the Middle East. Iran has influence on Iraq. Iran has army in Syria. They have these militias in Iraq. They have Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is a branch of the Iraqi National Guard, Revolutionary Guard. Iran is making Yemen, the Houthi in Yemen, throw their rockets and their missiles over on the Red Sea towards Israel, and on the international line of in the Arabian Gulf region and in the Red Sea region. So there is a lot of Iranian influence in Yemen as well. So nowadays, Iran has four kinds of influences in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Iraq, and we want to see that stop. Well, first of all, there is no need in Iraq to have militias that are loyal to Iran. These militia cause a lot of troubles for. Okay, I was talking about those militias that are Iraqi citizens, but they are influenced by Iran and they work on behalf of the Iranian government. There is no need for militias. Iraq is a wealthy country. It's a strong country. You have your own military, and you have the military commands. They could control the peace in the country. So there is no need for these militias to carry weapon in the streets of Iraq, to kidnap people, to kill people. These are Iraq. Well, as you know, the U.S. forces are in Iraq uh, because the Iraqi government asked the United States to send its forces to Iraq. Uh, the the Iraqi government and the military in Iraq are the ones who could tell us if the U.S. forces are necessary in Iraq or not. Uh, I think the Iraqi forces are have enough equipment, military equipment, to defeat ISIS. The only reason we are there is because of ISIS. If ISIS is gone, if ISIS is no threat to the Iraqi people, then by all means, the U.S. is not the U.S. forces are not needed. But that's a decision to be made by the Iraqi government and the Iraqi military. I understand that the prime minister is the head of the Iraqi forces, so the Iraqi government is the final word to decide whether U.S. forces are needed in Iraq or not. Well, this agreement was done in 2008 when President George Bush, the son, was president of the United States. And the purpose of that agreement to maintain a good relationship between the United States and Iraq, a good commercial relationship, military relationship, educational relationship, judicial relationship, and therefore it's well, as far as the United States is concerned, the United States welcomes the agreement. I don't think the United States at any point decided not to abide by the agreement, but it's up to the government of Iraq to go ahead and implement the agreement. I think that agreement is good. It benefits both countries as long as the economical relationship, as long as in the matters of the judicial relationship, the educational, all kinds of relationship between the United States and Iraq are enforced through this agreement. I think there is a will on the side of the Iraqi government to continue with the agreement, and I think the United States do not object to that at all. Well, I think there are obstacles within Iraq itself. There are elements in the Iraqi society whose loyalty is to a foreign government, to Iran. And that's very dangerous in any country if you have a segment of the society who support and who support a foreign country and prefer to have influence of a foreign country on their own national government. That's very dangerous. And I think the Prime Minister of Iraq, Mr. Mohammed Shah Sudani, is working on that to create an atmosphere in Iraq. Well, we are welcome to any demand, any request for any kind of assistance. The problem is that while we have around 2,000 U.S. forces in Iraq, these forces are attacked in Iraq and Syria more than 150 times. And so I think there is an obligation on the side of the Iraqi government to curb these attacks against the U.S. forces over there. The militias killed three American soldiers in the last 2 months in Jordan. The militia keeps throwing rockets at U.S. bases in Syria and Iraq, and we want that to stop. Okay, as far as the monetary situation in Iraq is concerned, as you know, the proceeds from the sales of oil, Iraqi oil, the proceeds go to the U.S. Banks, the central bank. And then every time the Iraqi government wants money, they call the central bank and they'll transfer the money for them. Recently, they noticed here in the US that some of the money that is being transferred from the United States to Iraq through the Iraqi banks, these banks transfer that money not to the Iraqi people, but to Iran. And so this is a violation to the US laws. It violates the sanctions that the United States has over Iran. You cannot transfer money to Iran that way. I can understand that Iraq owes money to Iran due to the purchase of electricity from Iran. That's fine. And the president allowed Iraq to transfer money to Iran as a result of that, of the purchase of electricity. But other than that, you cannot transfer money that is supposed to go to Iraqi banks. You cannot transfer that money to Iran. Iran is in need of dollars, and therefore the American dollar is going to Iran, and this violates the laws of the sanctions that the U.S. has imposed over Iran. Well, now it seems that the Central Bank of Iraq is working on this issue. They are doing some reforms to prohibit the transfer of US dollars from Iraq to Iran. And it seems that the government of Iraq is willing to cooperate with the United States government on this issue. Well, every prime minister in Iraq came to visit the United States, every single one of them. Usually they come as soon as they are nominated to be prime minister of Iraq, as soon as the government is formed, and as soon as the parliament agrees to the government. This time it didn't come early. The visit of the prime minister did not come early because there are certain issues. For example, the war in Gaza is one of them. The killing of 3 American soldiers on the hands of the militias, Iraqi militias in Jordan is another thing. And the crisis between the United States and Iran is a third thing. And therefore, the visit of the prime minister was supposed to be earlier than now, but it was scheduled at a later time because of these issues that I just mentioned. Well, the current situation is a crisis situation. We have a war in Gaza, and we have these events that took place, throwing more than 300 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones toward Israel from Iran. That never happened before. And therefore, we live in a crisis situation right now in the Middle East. The White House is trying to dampen this to allow more a tranquil situation, more peaceful situation in the Middle East. but the Middle East has always been on fire from time to time. What makes it different now is the war in Gaza, number one, and number two is the what happened on Saturday when Iran threw its missiles towards Israel.